If you have your Bibles, I invite you to turn in them to the Gospel of Mark, chapter 8. If you don't have a Bible, you have an app, I'm sure. And just don't do like the old people, and that is open your app when it's on audio version. You know, how many times are you in church and all of a sudden you hear somebody reading the Bible? And I love it. You know, they're trying to get with technology. They just don't quite know what to do with it. And it's humorous at times. Now, I've said that, it'll happen to me. And because I like an audio version when I'm traveling and such, and even in my personal time, I like to change things up, but it'll bite me. Mark chapter 8, and beginning with verse 34, and when Jesus had called the disciples to himself, he said to them, "Whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him the Son of Man also will be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." For just a few minutes this morning, I want you to keep the verse in mind. For what will it profit a man or woman if they gain the whole world and lose their own soul? Benjamin Franklin learned one of his first and most important lessons as a boy. When he was 7 years old, he saw another boy blowing a whistle and was so charmed at the sound of the whistle that he got all the money out of his pockets and he bought the whistle from the other lad. The other boy, when we saw all the money, eagerly agreed to the deal, and young Benjamin Franklin was so delighted with his purchase. He blew the whistle everywhere he went that day. He went home later that night and was blowing the whistle around the house, and yet his satisfaction was cut short when his brothers and sisters, upon finding how much he paid for it, informed him that he had paid 4 times what he could have bought it for down at the local store. Franklin recalled, "The reflection of this gave me more chagrin than the whistle gave me pleasure." You ever done anything like that? A bit of technology that you just had to have, and you get it and you're like, okay, yeah, great. You've saved for something and all of a sudden you get it and you're like, well, this isn't quite what the reviews were. You know, I do a lot of Amazon shopping. How many are Amazon Prime members, or you have family members who are that you just benefit? They just show up, right? And you go and you see this item, and are you like me? I go and look at the ratings. I look at all of them, and I don't look at 5-star ratings. How many read 5-star ratings? You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. I don't care what the 5-star people say. I actually go down and start reading at the 3 level. Because they're being honest. They're not saying it's terrible. They're not saying it's great. And I want to hear an honest, subjective opinion about the thing that I'm about to buy. But I've been disappointed. Been sorely disappointed when it comes. And it just isn't what they said it would be. Franklin said it gave me more chagrin than it gave me pleasure. But he took a valuable lesson from his youthful mistake, and it's a lesson that I hope you will hear from me this morning and reflect on it, not just today, but perhaps through the rest of your life. Franklin goes on and says, and I quote, "This, however, was afterward of use to me. This impression continuing on my mind, so that often when I was tempted to buy some unnecessary thing, I said to myself, don't give too much for the whistle." I continue to quote, and will quote for a while now. "As I grew up and came into the world and observed the many actions of men, I thought I met many, very many, who gave too much for the whistle. When I saw one too ambitious of court favor, sacrificing his time and attendance on vacations, his repose, his liberty, his virtue, and perhaps his friends to attain it, I've said to myself, that man is giving too much for his whistle. When I saw another fond of popularity, consistently employing himself in political bustles and neglecting his own affairs and ruining his life by that neglect, I said, he pays indeed too much for his whistle. Franklin goes on. I knew a miser who gave up every kind of comfortable living, all the pleasures of doing good to others, all the esteem of fellow citizens, and the joy of benevolent friendship for the sake of accumulating wealth. Poor man, I said, you pay too much for your whistle. When I meet with a man of pleasure, sacrificing every laudable improvement of the mind or his fortune to mere corporeal sensations and ruining his health in their pursuit, mistaken man, said I, you are providing pain for yourself instead of pleasure. You're paying too much for your whistle. Franklin goes on. I see one fond of appearance or fine clothes, fine houses, fine furniture, or fine equipages above his fortune, for which he contracts debts. Alas, say I, he has paid a very, very dear price for his whistle. He concludes this by saying, in short, I conceive that a great part of the miseries of mankind are brought upon them by the false estimates that they have made the value of things and by their giving too much for their whistle. While Benjamin Franklin wrote that, it's not original with him. You see, this had already been expressed centuries before in Mark chapter 8 when Jesus gathered his disciples around him and said, what is it going to profit you if you pay too much for your whistle? What's it going to profit you if you gain this entire world, and at the cost of gaining the entire world, you lose your life? You're paying too much for your whistle. What this lesson teaches us this morning is this, that if you live according to your desires, if you attain the highest successes in life, if you have everything that a person could ever dream of having, you have a beautiful girlfriend or boyfriend or a husband or wife. You have money in your bank accounts, and you have a mansion that you live in, and you have everything that your heart desires to the exclusion of making sure that your heart is right with God. Friends, I tell you, on this Friday morning of chapel, you've paid too much for your whistle. Our world talks a lot about achieving the American dream. And the American dream beckons people to spend their lives on whistles that do not matter. Pay attention to the billboards as we travel up and down our highway systems. Pay attention to the pop-up ads that come on your social media feed. What are these ads calling us to do? They're saying if you wear this clothes, or you spray this perfume or cologne on, if you drive this car, if you live in this area, if you take this supplement, all of a sudden life is going to be grand and glorious, and everything is going to be just the way that it ought to be. And countless millions pull their credit cards out of their wallet to see if perhaps that will bring happiness or pleasure or achieve the desired result that they're after. Our world calls us to success and comfort and pleasure. It's lauded above everything else around us. But I know that there are likely people here this morning, even current students here this morning, who haven't given this much thought at all. frankly, if we could interview you and find out what you're really thinking, all you want is for people to like you. I mean, isn't that noble? I just want to fit in. I don't want to be a person who sticks out. I don't want to be someone who is viewed as less than desirable. I just want people to like me. Or perhaps you might have thought it a bit more than that, and you just want a good job. You really don't want to have a mansion somewhere. You just want a job that'll provide for you and your family and give you what you want to have. You want a nice husband. You want a nice wife that you think's somewhat attractive. You want a couple of kids. Money in the bank to do what you want to do. I mean, how many like to live where you have to check your bank balance before you go to McDonald's? Some of you laugh because you know that's where you live right now. I live there too. When I was a student, I didn't have to balance my checkbook. I knew there was nothing in it to balance. Lord, I don't want much. I just would like to be able to go to dinner at a steakhouse without having to worry if there's enough in there to cover the tip. I just want to retire someday. You ever heard that? I don't need much. I just would like to have a little home on 1,000 acres somewhere and several hundred cattle running there. Wouldn't that be great? That's all I want, just to retire that way. Or some of you may be spiritually minded and would say that really all I want is an easy death at the end of all this and not having to worry about hell. Right? That's laudable. I mean, I don't want cancer to drag out in my life for months and years, and I don't want some debilitating disease that confines me to a little room somewhere. I don't want my mind to go so that I'm a burden to my family and they're having to act like they like me when Rodney's really not there. Just take me out. That's what I want. And then I don't want to have to worry about hell. You know, society's right there too. Perhaps that's why 80% of our modern day society say there's no hell to worry about. Just, you see, they bought into the notion that if we simply write it out of our minds, then I can live the way I want, do what I want, and at the end, check out, and I'm good. But friends, is this life merely about friends and jobs, companions, kids, money, and retirement? I remind you on this VIP day that if all you buy, listen now, if all you buy with the investment of your life is this, friends, job, companions, money, retirement, that's what you buy with the investment of your life, you've paid too much for your whistle. Really, the question that I want to remind you of this morning is this. When our time runs out, and who knows when that will be, when our time runs out, what did you buy with your life? Because a transaction is being made. It is. It's being made. Time runs on. All of a sudden you'll be like me, 44 years old, saying, I graduated 21 years ago from college. That seems crazy. When I think of myself in my mind, you know what I picture myself as? A 22-year-old college student who is still young and still can play basketball at 10:30 at night and not feel it when I climb out of bed in the morning. It's just not true anymore. Jacob Mason stacked the team last night. We lost in that championship because they found a third player that wasn't originally on the team. They found Jay Sean, who was launching up threes from all over the court, and they went in, and we lost. I'm not bitter about it. I'm pretty sore, not sore in spirit, just sore in my knees and hips and backs and arms and everything else. Life goes on. I'm buying stuff with my life right now. Friends, what I want you to see is that you don't have to come to God's Bible School and college to get it right. You don't. Some of you shouldn't come. Some of you, if you do come, you might get kicked out. Why is that? Because you've not yet seen that your life is a treasure. Your life is really a bank account, and how you spend it actually does matter. But for some of you, coming to GBS is the right spot. Why is it so important to go? Why do you hear us talk often about going to a Bible college for at least a period of time? Why do you hear us say it? The reason we say that is because we believe that it's in those crucible moments of your life. Crucial moments. What did I say? Crucible? Combine two words, sound like my son Scott there. He does that all the time. It's because it's in those formative years, how's that? That your framework is established. Your filters are established. And we use in the Christian world, we use a big term that really defines what I just tried to say, and that's a Christian worldview. That is that you live in such a way that everything you do, you see, your job, your companion, your entertainment, your bank accounts, your retirement, all of that flows from the lens of what does God want to accomplish in my life through me. That's a Christian worldview. And so I challenge you. What is it that Christ wants you to invest your life on? For some, it will be a high-paying job somewhere, and that's okay. I'll come visit you and say, I need help. I do it all the time. You say, why aren't you embarrassed to ask for money? Well, the reason I'm not embarrassed is because we're training men and women to go out and do the work of ministry. That doesn't mean standing behind a pulpit. That doesn't mean standing in a classroom. That doesn't mean directing a choir or singing special music at your local church. It doesn't mean the traditional idea that we have when we think of ministry. What I mean by ministry is simply your life. Training men and women to live their life with the idea that it matters to Him. It does. It matters to Him. So why GBS? I love to shoot shotguns. I have too many, and it's really a problem because I can't fit them in my. I shouldn't say this publicly. Anyway, I enjoy shooting shotguns. So if you figure out where I live, remember I enjoy shooting shotguns. The shell goes into the chamber. I have various kinds, but I'm just being general. Shells go into a chamber. A firing pin comes and hits the primer on the back of the shell. When that primer is ignited, it ignites the gunpowder that's inside the shell, which explodes. When that shell when it explodes, it pushes the shot into the barrel. Okay? So shooting is just a controlled explosion. That's why when people do it wrong, you see guns explode. I've seen it happen. That shot goes into the barrel. And there are different types of barrels, but when we're talking shotguns, they're generally a smooth bore barrel, which simply means there's nothing inside to help control that shot as it's traveling down that barrel. But most every shotgun will have a choke at the end. Some of them you screw in, some of them are there from the manufacturer, and that choke controls how that pattern or how that shot comes out of the end of the barrel. We call that the pattern. And so guys who are really into shooting shotguns will get a board about over there where that pillar is, and we'll shoot. And we'll walk over to that panel and we'll see where all the BBs hit on that board because we're interested to see where the shot is going. And if you're shooting clay pigeons like I like to shoot clay pigeons, it's important to have the right pattern or you're going to miss an awful lot. So we check our shot, and if we don't like it, we change the choke. If you're turkey hunting, how many have ever turkey hunted? You want a tight choke. Why? Because you're trying to hit a bird, okay, the neck of or somewhere on the turkey. If you are deer hunting with a shotgun, which forever was the law in the state of Ohio, you wanted a barrel that was a slug barrel that controlled and made it like a rifle. When you're bird hunting pheasants, you want an open choke because you're shooting a flying object. Why do I go with all that? Because actually that choke, in many ways, is the most important part of that process. Because it defines where the BBs go. GBS is the choke. Your parents have already launched you into the barrel. You're there. Okay. You're traveling down. You're going to go somewhere. You're going to go somewhere. You're going to do something. It's already happened. We can't take it back. That controlled explosion that I just talked about, it happened. And now, as you're traveling down the barrel, the reason God's Bible School and College is important is it's the choke that will control the pattern for the rest of your life. I travel around the world, and I run into people often who are sitting right where you sat, who are making a difference for the kingdom of God. Some as realtors, some as lawyers, some as medical professionals, some as preachers, some as teachers, musicians, are making a difference. Why? That choke created a framework for them to hang their life on. Don't pay too much for this world's whistle. Father?
We're glad you joined us. God's Bible School and College prepares students for lives of ministry wherever God calls them. This content is possible because of the generous support of friends like you. To support GBSC, visit giving.gbs.edu. Thank you.